Hello there, good evening. Welcome to Starr today here on Starr FM. I am Tutuwaa Danso. Let's see the stories making the headlines in this broadcast. And coming up in this broadcast, conflicting figures fly over amounts paid to state broadcaster GBC as Director General Professor Amin Al-Hassan denies claims by Sports Minister Mustafa Yusuf the station was paid $3 million for the coverage of the All-African Games.
GBC was the official broadcaster for the African Games 20. I can't recollect the exact amount, but I know that it's in the excess of $3 million US dollars.
The benefit total payment to GBC's for GBC's benefit, I repeat, was $105,000 and that is what we got.
Also coming up in this broadcast, we have more on that for you shortly, plus a reaction from Ningo Pram MP Samuel Nate George, whose questions led to this controversy. Now, President Akufo-Addo stirs controversy as he describes the controversy over sale of Snid hotels as needless.
This should be reassuring to Labour, perhaps bringing to sharper relief the unnecessary controversy that was recently generated by Snid's efforts to offload non-performing assets in its hotel portfolio.
Also coming up in this broadcast, Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana vows to resume industrial action if government fails to implement agreed terms, including payment of outstanding July salaries immediately. And later, tears anguish as family of 25-year-old man killed by an off-duty police officer demands justice for their slain Kingsman.
There wasn't anything like there was argument. There wasn't anything like they were battling. There wasn't any fight. This is a gentleman who cannot even kill a fowl. So there wasn't any fight. Nothing happened. He just pulled the trigger. Yes, when it happens like this, people will be talking, other rumors will be going that there are fights going on before he pulled the trigger. There was nothing like a fight.
Tonight, we will assess the security of passengers and also speak to a security analyst, Dr. Adam Bonam. There are details of these and many other stories coming up in this broadcast. Do stay.
Star News is coming to you live on Ultimate 106.9 FM in Kumasi, Empire 102.7 FM in Takrady, Cool 103.5 FM in Ho, Rage and Might FM in Tamale, Sonali FM in Wa, My Star Radio in the USA. Also live on Facebook on Star 103.5 FM and on starfm.com.gh around the world. This is Star 103.5 FM.
Thank you for choosing us this evening. And just when it seemed that the controversies surrounding the recently held All-African Games, including revelations that some vendors were still owed, had died down, a new scandal has emerged. The Ministry of Youth and Sports and the state broadcaster GBC are at odds over the amounts paid for the coverage of the games. Now, during his appearance at the Public Accounts Committee sitting, Sports Minister and MP for Yagaba Kabore, Mustafa Yusuf, claimed that GBC was paid $3 million for the coverage.
I just have a quick public interest question. It has to do, and maybe this would either be answered by the Minister or the Sports Authority. You had an arrangement with GBC to cover the All-Africa Games, right? Can you share with this committee how much that coverage was for and whether payment has been made for same?
Thank you so much. Yes, GBC was the official broadcaster for the African Games, the 13th African Games, and I can confirm that full payment have made to GBC.
Do you have per chance what the amount was?
I can't recollect the exact amount, but I know that it's in the excess of $3 million US dollars.
You paid GBC
yes.
in excess of $3 million US dollars
yes.
for coverage of the All Africa Games.
Yes.
Chairman, I think that I would rest here, and maybe the next time GBC appears before us, because most of the technicians who worked on the All Africa Games have still not been paid. And so we wanted to ascertain if you have paid and how much has been paid. Chairman, I'm grateful.
You just heard the Mustafa Yusuf of the Public Accounts Committee answering some questions from Sam George. Let's get some clarity on this issue. And my colleague, Benjamin Yamwa, is here in the studios with the very latest. Benghazi, thank you very much for your time. So this development has set a lot of tanks wagging. Tell us more about what you know.
So, right, like you just rightly played, the insight you played, which was the sports minister at Park yesterday, making that statement, which was a response to Sam George. It was a public interest question, because it was not originally part of the reasons why both the minister and then the NSA directors were there initially. They were there to respond to questions around the NSA and, of course, the Youth Authority. But that question came up, and the minister said that they had paid, in fact, in excess, he said in excess of $3 million to GBC for the coverage of the All African Games.
I think this is where the whole confusion stemmed from, because people don't exactly understand what in excess of $3 million exactly mean and the breakdown of that amount. Can you help us with that?
It will be difficult for me to get you the exact amount, even though, yes, we've seen what's supposed to be the initial contract that was supposed to be between the GBC and the Ministry of Youth and Sports, which in those particular contracts I've seen myself, the amount stated in there is $3.6 million.
Okay.
But what we do not know for sure is if indeed that was a contract that indeed was signed after all, because initially, and I appreciate if we get to listen to the director of GBC.
Absolutely.
Prof, who has responded to the minister's statements he made at Park yesterday.
We can listen to that now.
All I can say is this. There were externally sourced production teams. GBC was invited to the table less than 1 month to the games, that they wanted us as the official broadcaster and that we should do the production. And we made it very clear that an event or a series of events such as 2 weeks of sporting fiesta, GBC did not have the technical equipment to do that. So we made it very clear to the ministry from the first meeting that that has to be outsourced. We don't have the equipment. I mean, we don't have the equipment capacity to do it. So the ministry agreed that we should play the role of the official broadcaster, and technical teams were brought in from outside the country. They flew in with their equipment. And as the official broadcaster, we had the responsibility to confirm that work was done and that payment should be effected. And some of these payments were routed through GBC to these third-party payments. Those transfers were not for the benefit of GBC. And we could never have used those monies for GBC's needs. No, it wasn't possible. That would have been criminal. We facilitated payments to foreign third parties who came in to do the production and not for the benefit of GBC. The benefit total payment to GBC's for GBC's benefit, I repeat, was $105,000, and that is what we got.
Now, but does GBC have any evidence to back what you're saying? Because, I mean, the minister is the one in charge. He has made a statement.
Of course.
What evidence do we have?
We definitely have enough documentation. These monies are not paid in bags. They are paid through the bank. And they are indicated what the money is for. And before we do that, there's a letter we will receive from the ministry telling us whose payment it should be for. And so we don't act on our own. We act upon instructions. And that we have all the documentations, and we have everything in place to show that these monies. You see, public funds are not easily disbursed like that. GBC needs $3 million to do a lot of things. And if we got the $3 million, we would have gone ahead to start spending on GBC's needs, including procuring an OB van. We didn't get that money.
One issue that came up at the Public Accounts Committee was the fact that some technicians who worked during the games were not paid. And in fact, it's one of the reasons why the Member of Parliament, Samuel George, asked that question about the funds for the All African Games. Have the technicians been paid?
In my response to the chairman of PAC, copy to Honorable Sam George, and copy to the Honorable Minister of Youth and Sports, and copy to the Honorable Minister of Information, as well as the National Media Commission. We stated clearly that we paid our staff who were deployed to location 100 Ghana cedis a day for showing up to work. An accountant and an internal auditor were dispatched daily to visit all the sites and pay. And only those who showed up to work took the money. It doesn't, if you were duty scheduled to be at, let's say, Boteman Stadium and Sports Complex, and you did not show up, you could not claim that payment. So as far as I am concerned, all staff who were qualified to receive the payments have been duly paid. And it is not an entitlement you can claim without going on location to work. In fact, it is not even covered by any collective agreement. Management had learned that food was expensive on those locations. So we first decided that we're paying them 50 Ghana cedis each. And we were told food was expensive. So we increased it to 100 cedis. And these monies were paid on location. Now, when something is paid on location, you can't come back to BH and say you were there, you want the payment. You cannot be paid. That is why, for accountability's sake, we make sure that on every trip of the finance personnel, an internal auditor accompanied him. So we paid all technicians who were deployed to work. Nobody has been left out, unless you choose not to visit the site or you choose not to take the payment.
Well, you just heard the Professor Amina Larson, the Director General of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, speaking on Unique FM earlier. But Benghazi, let me come back to you in the studio. He's had a lot to say. He sought to give some breakdown of the amount of money that GBC benefited from. Can we get into details of that?
So if you listen to Prof critically, he, from all that I've listened to, sought to put to bear that GBC as a company benefited a certain amount of money, which he gave out, a little over $105,000 US dollars. That's the benefit directly to GBC as a company.
Out of the $3 million.
But he also said in that same interview, or the set we heard, that other payments were made through GBC to other third-party companies that form part of the production team for the coverage. So what it means is that, and if you listen to other interviews I've heard of the same gentleman, Prof. Al-Hassan of GBC, and then the statement they have released as well. Now, it states in there that in the GBC did not only provide, if you like, coverage, but they were supposed to be a supervisory body to the production team, technical production team that was set up. That included third-party companies that came on board and helped in getting the production done. In fact, I want to refer to the statement released by GBC. Aside the Director General speaking in this interview, they've released a statement as well to clarify a few things. And I want to go into it now. According to the statement, per an agreement with the Ministry of Youth and Sports and GBC, now GBC as official broadcaster was to supervise the technical production teams that were to bring into the country their own production equipment and to undertake the production of the African Games. It's important to note and to clear that GBC was the official broadcaster but not responsible for technical production of the games. Now that production was, and I mentioned the names here, they've given out the following companies that were in charge of that. PGS, Quality Media Productions, SL, the Production Room, TPR. These entities are supposed to be the third-party companies that were involved in that particular job. So in that statement, it indicates that GBC worked together with these three companies for the production of the, if you like, the production for the African Games. And again, the man said what he didn't state, and I'm sure that's where we need to ask questions. And I wish we could get the man on, right, the data I mean, to tell us, since he said that the monies were paid through GBC to the third parties, perhaps it could help us by giving us those figures so that you and I can then sit back, analyze the figures, and Just to put that to the amount that was mentioned by the minister yesterday at PAC, because the man said $3 million was paid to GBC.
If he says that he paid 3 million Ghana cedis to GBC,
$3
million dollars, did he err in saying that?
I can't say yes or no now because we need to get all the facts. So that we can then proceed and say that the man got it wrong. The man lied to PAC or didn't give us a full disclosure. Now, from the response of the Director General of GBC, he says GBC benefited only X amount, 105,000. We take away that amount from the over $3 million. That's a lot of money. So we need to find out then, since he also said that other monies were paid through GBC to the third parties, how much
were paid
to those companies, so that then we can do the mathematics and then come to a conclusion that, okay, if you add the monies that were paid to the third parties and that of GBC and how much they made, this is the amount. If it doesn't tally to the amount that was mentioned by the minister in Parliament yesterday, then we can begin speaking to that issue.
So, I mean, before you came in, I said that this issue had set a lot of tongues wagging. Do you think that it is because of the response from the Director General of GBC that has, sort of created this hula balloon?
I think that what is happening is perhaps what I call two individuals.
Bengazi, I will come to you shortly, but let's go over the phone lines now and engage the Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram, Samuel Nati George. He actually posed the question that led to all of this happening right now. So thank you very much, sir, for your time this evening. Now, what is your initial reaction to the GBC's Director General's claim?
Good evening to you and good evening to all of the listeners. I am scandalized. I'm gobsmacked. I mean, like every Ghanaian, you are traumatized at the corruption that has engulfed this country, and it's like it's an embarrassment of scandal. I asked this question not anticipating that this will happen, but to hear the minister under oath say that he paid $3 million, in fact, in excess of $3 million to GBC, and then to this morning, in fact, less than 24 hours later, hear the GBC Director General, Officer Amin, come out and say that no, only $105,000 was paid to us. You're asking yourself, what's the 2.9, in excess of $2.9 million? Where's that money? Who has that money? That's US dollars, almost $3 million. That's almost 50 million Ghana cedis at today's exchange rate. Like, that's a lot of money.
According to the Director General, third parties were outsourced to and take part in the production. Don't you think this amount of money may have gone to them as well?
Well, if GBC received $3 million and made payments to third parties, the Director General would have stated things. The Director General was emphatic this morning when he appeared on the GTV net platform. He said they received $105,000.
You also mentioned that some technicians who worked on the games have not been paid. This has been refuted by the DG as well. What are your thoughts on that?
On that one, I will take the DG on. So you see, this matter now is pregnant. It's pregnant with twins. One is the veracity of how much money has been paid, 3 million, in excess of 3 million or 105,000. The other has to do with the DG's claim that my suggestion that technicians were not paid is not true. I have memos which I will put out, memos that show that even in the middle of the game, on the either the 13th or 15th of March, during the game, the DBC technical staff served a memo to management that they were going to lay down their tools and stop the broadcast because they weren't being paid. There had to be a crisis meeting between the Director General and the technicians. Here, the Director General says he paid 100 Ghana cedis. I'm aware that he sent some paper around for people to sign for 100 Ghana cedis. Who are the people who signed? Are they the real people who were working? There are all kinds of questions that have to be asked and have to be answered. So we will have a proper hearing of this matter. Thankfully, I serve on the Public Accounts Committee. That's why I asked this question. But I also am ranking on the Communications Committee, and the Communications Committee has oversight over GBC and the Ministry of Information. So I'll be discussing with my ranking and chairman to have this matter tabled properly before the committee to investigate the matter. We will invite the union, we will invite management and investigate and see how the staff of GBC were paid and treated.
Are you by then saying that the response from the DG that some of the technicians have been indeed paid is false?
I'm saying the evidence I have suggests the contrary, but we'll have a full investigation of it.
So now that you have this information from the DG, what is going to be your next line of action?
Parliament Select Committee on Communications will summon the GBC management and its union to appear before us.
Do we know when they are appearing before the committee?
Well, Parliament is on recess at the moment. I'm sure you are aware Parliament is on recess. Members are in their constituencies. The Public Accounts Committee sits during the recess. We've reasoned in a day today. And so, like I said, I'm going to be speaking with my leadership, and then we'll have to serve notice and make sure that members are able to come back from their constituencies to be able to come and see. So we're looking at a few weeks, but hopefully we'll be able to convene this quickly and then get into the matter. Parliament is not sitting. If Parliament was sitting, we could have been doing this within a matter of days. But Parliament is on recess. Members are campaigning. We need to find a way to bring members back to investigate and have a proper hearing on this matter.
Right. So at the moment, we are not sure if GBC will be appearing before the Public Accounts Committee anytime soon.
Well, like I said to you, the Public Accounts Committee has reasons in a day. Our next sitting is in Tamale. And so we've adjourned sitting in Accra this evening.
Right. Thank you very much. Samuel Nate George is the Member of Parliament for Ningo Prampram and also a member on the Public Accounts Committee. Let me come back in the studio and talk to my colleague Benghazi. So Benghazi, that is what the Member of Parliament has been saying. I don't know how you feel about his responses.
I mean, we'll wait. And that's it's only fair that, like he said, you invite the parties and get to the bottom of the matters.
Right.
That one is very fair. But before I go, like I said, I also have gotten, some documents. This was supposed to be the agreement or the contract between the Ministry of Youth and Sports and the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation over the African Games coverage. What we are unable to speak to, it's been signed anyway, signed for the Ministry of Youth and Sports by Honorable Mustafa Yusuf, Minister for Youth and Sports, witnessed by William Kate, who is the Chief Director at the Ministry. Then for GBC, it is signed by Professor Amin Al-Hassan, Director General, and witnessed by John Kwame Waja, the designated as the Director of Legal Service at GBC.
Okay.
He witnessed that.
Okay.
Now, if you go through that supposed contract, which spelled out the amounts, the roles, and all of that, what I see here, I see an amount which is supposed to be how much GBC was supposed to be paid for their services. I see $3.6 million.
Is it just GBC? Or with the third parties inclusive?
This particular does not state third parties being included in this. That's what I'm saying. I'm not too sure if this is what held after everything. But whatever it is, like I've said severally, we need to get the answers from the two entities.
Absolutely.
GBC on one hand, how much they received in total, how much they paid the third parties, as was said by Director General, how much went to other third parties, and for the ministers also come back and give us the breakdown properly of how much the breakdown of the $3 million that was indeed sent out or paid to GBC, if indeed it was paid to GBC, how much was supposed to be for GBC, and how much was supposed to be for the other third parties who were in charge of the production unit of the whole African Games.
Benghazi, thank you very much. Benghazi is my colleague on the sports desk. We've been having a conversation on what transpired at the Public Accounts Committee regarding the amount of money paid to GBC for the coverage of the All-African Games.
Starr today. First, fast, and credible.
Let's do education now. And after months of industrial action due to the government's failure to implement a binding agreement pending for 2 years, the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana have returned to the classroom. Now, this development allows academic teaching and learning to resume in colleges across the country. CETAC had embarked on an indefinite strike on June 14, 2024, and had just called it off today. However, they have issued a notice of their intention to resume industrial action on October 2024 if the government fails to meet the agreed terms. Let's get more on this development, and my colleague Edem Kojo joins me in the studio with the very latest. Edem, thank you very much for your time this evening. So share with us the details of the statement from CETAC.
Okay, so those who have been following CETAC for a while know that indeed they have been away for so long a time. Well, yesterday we had indication that CETAC was likely to call off their strike after government gave assurances that they would meet. Well, this is the official press release from CETAC labeled or headlined press release, CITAC calls off strike action. Now it reads, in a virtual emergency national council meeting of the Colleges of Education Teachers Association of Ghana, that is CITAC, today, 20th August 2024, council members have voted unanimously to call off the ongoing strike action of the association with immediate effect. The decision to call off the strike follows CITAC's meeting with the Office of the Vice President of the Republic on 15th August 2014 at the Jubilee House, and the assurance to stand surety for the resolution of the impasse. The assurances were confirmed in a meeting between the government team and representatives of CITAC at the Ministry of Employment and Labour Relations on Monday, 19th August 2024, which the government team gave a roadmap with clear timelines for fulfilling their outstanding concerns with CITAC. Now, however, CITAC leadership is to reiterate that the strike action shall resume at the end of October 2024 if government fails to follow the roadmap as follows, and I'll quickly list them. 1, that the frozen July 2024 and August 2024 salaries shall be paid together at the end of August 2024. 2, that the offline migration of the staff shall be completed by the end of August 2024. 3, that the offline migration data shall be sent to all 46 colleges of education for verification by individual staff before processing by Controller and Accountant General in September 2024. 4, that payment after migration will reflect in October 2024 salaries, and that the parties shall meet to agree on the payment plan for all arrears immediately. 5, that the nomenclature to be used for migrating senior members of the teaching staff shall be assistant lecturer, lecturer, senior lecturer, associate professor, and professor in line with the affiliate university scheme of service. 6, that compensation for all year-round work done in 2022 shall be paid by the end of August 2024. And 7, which is finally, that all holders of research master's degree shall be migrated as assistant lecturers. So these are the 7 requirements that the conditions that CITAC have given that must be addressed, otherwise the strike resumes in October.
Adam, thank you very much. Adam Kojo is my colleague on the research desk. Now let's have a conversation on the back of these developments, and we've been joined by the National Secretary for CITAC, Thomas Ampoma. Thank you very much for your time, Thomas. Now for almost 70 days, you have not been in the classroom and have only called off your industrial action today. Tell us, how difficult or easy was it for you to come to this conclusion?
Thank you very much. We thank all listeners of this important radio station or FM station. It is not easy for us, but we have been able to come to a decision, because when you are in this kind of struggle and you get to a certain point where all the powerful people in the nation are trying to find a solution to your problem, I think it is better you take a decision that will not affect you in the future. And that's exactly what CITAC has done.
Now, Thomas, in your statement, you did indicate that you met up with the vice president and some government representatives and your association. What assurances did they give you?
In fact, the vice president's office has given us the assurance that all the outstanding issues will be settled by the end of October 2024. So if you have gone to the highest level of authority, giving you this kind of assurance, and you say you turn it down, I don't know where you can go again. So the council members are very wise that once the vice president of the land, including the presidency, giving this assurance, it is prudent for us to take a decision so that we give him the benefit of the doubt of October ending.
Right, but are you confident in this assurance given by the vice president?
We are very confident because they hold the purse. The vice president, the president of the land, the minister of employment and labor relations, the minister of finance, the minister of education, have all given the assurance, and they've written and shown commitment that it will be done.
Right, but Thomas, if you are so sure that this roadmap will be implemented, or as you're expressing confidence in the vice president, why then are you threatening to embark on another industrial action?
You see that there's a trust issue for us because this matter has been there since 2021. Of course, we have gone on site for this is the fourth site over this same matter. And none of these things have gotten to the Jubilee House. It is only this fight that has gotten to the Jubilee House. So for that level of authority to come into the matter, we don't believe they will renege on their assurance. But we think that we have to put that caveat into our relief to show that we are not just saying that we are calling off the strike, but we mean that if nothing is done, we come back to the strike again.
Right. Now, how are your members receiving this decision?
Well, it is an overwhelming decision of the council members. So there are people among us who believe that the strike should not be called off, which because of the past incident, the past, which the authorities did not follow. So, but the majority, overwhelming majority, are in support of the fact that the highest level that I've gotten to, you should give the vice president office some kind of respect and see what he can also do for the first time.
Right. Now, Thomas, there are people that have said that, it is a good thing that you have decided to return to the classrooms, but you have been away for 70 days, if I'm not wrong. There have been concerns that you are toying with the education of the trainee teachers. How do you respond to this, Thomas?
That is not the case at all. Education is not something that is like a health, where when you are sick and you are attended to, you can lose your life or you can do that. In fact, during the COVID era, after the COVID, we had to teach for a whole year because we wanted to bring the calendar back to life. And even just last year, when we went on strike and we returned to work, we were able to make up for all the lost time. And I don't think we have done anything wrong against the students. These very students will come in future to take the place of us in the colleges, to teach as lecturers, to teach as professors. So if we have been able to work this out so that you will not be called a tutor in the college, you will not be called assistant tutor, chief tutor, but you be called professor in the college, these students in 3 or even 10 years or less will come back to the college and enjoy all the practice that we have done today for them. So what we did is for prosperity to come and enjoy it. It is not anything mischief. We want the betterment of Ghanaian education. That's why we did this.
Right. Thomas, now it's been over 70 days since you abandoned the classrooms. I mean, there have been some concerns raised that this academic semester should just be nullified. What do you say to that? Would you indeed nullify the academic semester, or you would do overtime to make up for the loss?
No, the academic calendar cannot be nullified. The only thing we need to do is to add more of the weeks. I think we have done, the strike is about 8 weeks. So these 8 weeks must be added to whatever the students have lost so that they can get it back and they can write their examination. We cannot go and teach 3 weeks and close the colleges. We cannot teach overnight. You cannot teach at dawn. No, we have to extend the calendar. We have to extend the calendar for the period that the students have lost, and we continue from there.
Thomas, thank you very much for your time this evening. Thomas Ampoma is the National Secretary of SITAC. He's been telling me that they had to undergo series of meetings to reach this decision to call off their strike after being away from the classroom for about 70 days. And he says that this was not deliberately to affect the students, but they had to do this in order to secure the future of teachers in the country.
Starr today, first, fast, and credible.
Now, to one of our headline stories, President Nana Akufo-Addo has described controversy surrounding the sale of some Senate hotels to the Rock City Company Limited, owned by Minister for Food and Agriculture, Brian Champong, as needless. This comes after the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, and organized labor staged a protest against the institution in June. Among many other things, the group called for the immediate dissolution of the Board of the Social Security and National Insurance Trust and the resignation of top management members over the decision to sell of 60% of its stake in some hotels. But speaking at the 12th Quadrennial National Delegates Congress of the Trade Union Congress, President Akufo-Addo said the controversy was needless.
Coverage of pensions in the informal sector has increased from 91,253 in 2016 to 817,444 currently. Total assets under management have grown from 15.7 billion cedis in December 2016 to 71.6 billion cedis in March 2024. Representing a significant increase of some 350%. The growth of pension fund assets serves as vital capital for investment, infrastructural development, and job creation. The government remains committed to expanding pension coverage, sustaining the pensions regime, and enhancing the adequacy of pension payouts. I'd like to extend special gratitude the Sector Minister for Pensions, the Honourable Ignatius Bafuobia, Member of Parliament for Sunyani West, for his hard work, diligence, and exemplary leadership in transforming the sector. I take note in particular of the improved performance of SNIT, which recently announced a surplus of 230 million cedis on its operations. This should be reassuring to labor and perhaps bring into sharper relief the unnecessary controversy that was recently generated by SNIT's efforts to offload non-performing assets in its hotel portfolio. It is my understanding that the transaction that was aborted represented the only occasion in recent history of SNIT that external investors sought to invest in SNIT's holdings. All of us need to be measured when it comes to making decisions and pronouncements that will affect the long-term interests of pensioners. Ladies and gentlemen, over the past 7 years,
you just heard President Akufo-Addo there addressing members of the Trade Union Congress, and we tried to get some responses from them because earlier they had joined forces with the Member of Parliament for North Tongue, Samuel Okujeto Ablakwa, to protest over the sale of the SNIT hotels to Rock City Hotels, but that move has not been fruitful just yet. As and when we do get that conversation, we will bring it to you shortly.
So then I told them, I said, I told him, say, oh, yeah. Now come on, boy, driver. My family near nearest hospital. So I was packing and all that one up, Stanley and so.
Well, those are the tears from the family of the 24-year-old man who was gunned down by a driver who has now been identified as a policeman. The demands of the family is simple. They want justice for their slain kinsman. The deceased, Stanley Ahadi-Koku, was shot by the off-duty policeman who was providing ride-hailing services to the deceased girlfriend over an amount of 200 cedis. He charged. Edwin Araba Edu visited the family and reports.
So the act was done without any provocation. There wasn't anything like there was argument. There wasn't anything like they were battling. There wasn't any fight. This is a gentleman who cannot even kill a fowl. So there wasn't any fight. Nothing happened. He just pulled the trigger. Yes, when it happens like this, people will be talking, other rumors will be going that there are fights going on before he pulled the trigger. There was nothing like a fight. And the gentleman in question wasn't holding anything for you to say that he's attacking you before you come for self-defense. So that is what happened. Now the family the family is not yet gathered. You know, when the issue has happened like this, we all going helter-skelter, trying to know what actually to do. So we've scheduled our first meeting to Sunday, this coming Sunday. That is when we're going to have our first meeting, which is on the 25th. Sunday is 25th of August. So we're going to have our first meeting then. So in the meeting, that was when we're going to know, the family will decide and actually know what necessary steps to take. So for now, I can say that the family hasn't taken any decision yet. There is no steps taken now. There are no steps taken now. We are yet to meet as a family, then we'll know the steps, the actual steps to take. Yes, but for now, what we can say is that the police said they have taken up the issue. So the family will meet on Sunday. Then we will know what actually it is, the demands will be. Yeah, so for now, it's our person that has lost. The life is more important than the demand. The life is gone. And it's a painful.
That was a relative of the late Stanley Ahaji Koku who was speaking to my colleague Evelyn Araba Edu. But the girlfriend of the deceased, Esther Owusuwa, has also been speaking to Star News.
And the Okada guy was standing behind me, and Stanley was standing behind the way the driver held Stanley stop. No, I was standing in front of the police and the driver, and the Okada guy was standing behind me, and Stanley was standing behind the Okada driver, and the police too was holding the top. No, another fire in anymore. So Stanley was standing beside the corner. The corner here. Because we're holding it giddy. So I said, driver, and your boy wearing a foul car. Men am a foul car. So I know because I rough dear. Oh, all right, sir. Ube shoot me and I see me. But I'm a foul car, me no because I rough. And I won't know your patch. But when I do the phone so to me, so I can say, boss, I'm sorry. It's me patch. For China. Because if I'm wasting his time, it's going to take 200 cities. Me see me here. Because when Stanley got down from the motor and was talking to the driver, and when the driver gave the warning shot, when the driver even removed the gun, Stanley gave me his phone and his key to hold for him. So Stanley's phone and his key was with me. So I told the driver, I said, me here. My mom number, me here. And when the man also, the third witness that came, also said, so also a police in here, fair with him now, former police. Now, never handcuff woman, and he was telling me I said only handcuff. So me no that time no, I was holding the policeman's hand. He was telling me say me can't nothing I can't hold a bit me. But even for that one I didn't stop holding his hand. I was still holding his hand. And starting to was begging. Boss sorry. So when Stanley told me say top ni me and the that time that man say on Stanley and tough him. He slapped Stanley. He used the gun to hit Stanley's back. Before I say don't born Stanley no kuntu. So that time Stanley made up his mind say oh baby top no. Not top no I can't want in same. So me wait Stanley did I was even thinking that Stanley wanted to Stanley wants the top to remove so no quiet journey. So if the man is going to shoot him, Quebec can or something. So when Stanley went down, when the man tried to make Stanley go down, Stanley couldn't win him. Then the two and boss Stanley ni quench ni THE. I don't know how to say it in English. Ni quench ni THE. Then neni as swai neni swai. So I don't want to push me before he did that. If not, maybe he can sad. So then I ran, and when he shoots Stanley, he ran to his car. Then he came back and was like, "Mekunipa." So that time, when I push me, I also ran from that side to come and fall on Stanley. I was like, "Stanley, babe," and I saw say, "Stone na come my elbow." And Stanley held my hand. So then I told the driver, I said, "Oh." I told him, say, "Oh yeah, na come my elbow." Driver. My family near nearest hospital. So as can all that.
Very unfortunate developments there, and that was the girlfriend of the deceased, Esther Owusuwa, speaking to my colleague Evelyn Araba Edu, giving an account of what she had witnessed over the period, the entire altercation that happened between her late boyfriend and the policeman who was also offering ride-hailing services. Now, we are built to speak with security analyst Dr. Adams Buna for a conversation on the back of this. Mr. Buna, if you can hear me, thank you very much for your time this evening. Hello, Dr. Buna. Well, Adam Buna is a security analyst and he's joined us now for a conversation. Doc, thank you very much for your time this evening. Now, I believe that you paid attention to the accounts from the deceased late's girlfriend. Are you shocked by the revelations?
Well, yes. It's a yes and no. It's a yes and no because it's not everybody. Good evening to your listeners. It's not everybody who handles firearm could be perceived to be sane. People are going through various degrees of insanity. It's just a matter of time before it shows up. And so as far as I'm concerned, anyone who understands, what a firearm could do and what those who, especially some of the people who handle firearms and those who have them, sometimes the mentality will tell you that it is not so strange. I mean, there's a thin line dividing sanity and insanity. So I'm not so surprised if you ask.
But I mean, this is somebody that is supposed to be offering protection to people, and he tends to be attacking those very own people that he's supposed to protect. Can we attribute it to just about sanity issues?
Well, no, you see, the point is that it's the reasons why when, we would go into probably he being a police officer, but maybe let me attempt to speak to some people or the general public. Sometimes a lot of people feel that owning a firearm makes you probably more protected than you would have been. But owning a firearm takes a lot more than protecting you and the people around you. Okay, so now going back to this police officer, he's been trained, obviously, to handle a firearm. We are told that the firearm that he discharged is a firearm that is paid by the state. He himself is an employee of the state. The firearm that is given him is paid by the state, a sidearm. And he's used a firearm on a civilian, or you call it a citizen, an ordinary citizen. And so then the question is that at what point did he decide to be doing his side jobs with his firearm? I mean, what protocols what did he go through? I mean, who are his supervisors? Who does he work under? Which station does he operate from? And so is this something he's been doing, around the clock? We need to also know, do we have some officers who have been assigned as a sidearm? And I have had conversations such as if it is, a state firearm, then it's supposed to have been in the armory. But the truth is that if you are assigned a sidearm, usually the sidearm is given you for your 24-hour work in case you are called. So most often than not, these firearms are supposed to be kept by them, depending on who you are. And so I don't know whether it's one of the category of persons who is assigned a 24-hour firearm, and he used it to do his own business, and, it's led to this unfortunate situation. I think that it is unfortunate. It should be condemned, and he should face the consequences of his actions. And other officers who are listening probably should take a cue from this. Maybe they need more training. More training would help, because then this might look isolated, but I tell you what, you can't say it's isolated when a human being is dead. We need to be, a bit careful the way we discuss this, and condolences to the bereaved family. It's just unfortunate that it has to get to this. And for purposes of education, again, police officers and security officials are not supposed to undertake any form of business without actually writing and asking, getting permission from the Inspector General of Police or the Controller of Immigration or Fire and the rest. So these are questions we need to ask again. Apart from him doing this dastardly act, did he have the permission to, in fact, procure the vehicle he's using and to use it for business? Because he's not supposed to do that until he's given permission by the IGP to do that. And so if he had this vehicle, did his supervisors, obviously is assigned to a station somewhere, those supervisors who are supposed to be supervising him, were they aware that when he closes from work, he jumps into his vehicle and drives it around to make money, or they didn't know? These are questions that probably we need to be asking.
But Doc, would you admit that there are some unprofessionals within the institution?
Oh yes, there are. There are, some unprofessionals. I won't say a lot of them. The situation has improved over the last few years. But yes, there are some I have encountered some of them, and in fact reported them to the police hierarchy for stated misbehavior, and some of them have been taken on. I can tell you this, some of them have been reported. Recently, an incident got to my attention where some police officers were involved in not something that looks like this, but something that they framed up somebody. And I had to help, this person who probably didn't know where to turn, get the issue to the police hierarchy. And these officers, I think, are facing service inquiry and facing punishment here and there. So there are some of them errant ones who don't care, who don't see the development that is taking place within their own institution and take the laws into their own hands. There are some of them, so that it is true. They are there. I have encountered a couple of them, and anytime it came to my notice, I had to report to the police hierarchy. And so I think citizens should do that. Citizens should be able to report to the nearest station or PIPs. I mean, you should be able to get redress once these things come to your notice.
Doc, that actually sounds quite threatening, but how do we weed out such persons?
Well, how we weed out such persons is to be on the lookout for them. Be on the lookout for them. Because then I say that do not sit in your vehicle when a police officer says, can you open your back door, or the boots for me? I want to do some inspection. Because then, if you remember what the former IGP Opombwenu said, some police officers will drop, some roll of weed into your car, and within a split second, they tell you they found weed in your car, and before you see, they are framing you up very quickly. And night would turn into day, and day would turn into night. And so once we begin to be alert ourselves, it becomes difficult for us to be framed up. But I must say there has been improvement, but there are still some of them who don't care, who is just the matter of taking 5 cities, 10 cities, 20 cities here and there, and trying to help themselves. We should probably be ready to report them. Sometimes when these things happen and we encounter them, we just let it go. We should encounter them. I think there are a lot of them who are doing well, but there are some of them too who don't care. They don't care about the citizens. For instance, this officer, what he has done, we won't say because of him, every police officer is bad. But the truth is that there are some of them who don't care about the people they are supposed to be protecting. And those people, citizens, myself, in weeding those people out. And I would say in service training, I know they have something like that. But, it should, I think we need more resources to go in there to help some of these people. Psychologically, it's something that some of us feel that periodically we should be able to examine them and, to tell how they feel mentally. Because then how on earth can you just decide a firearm for, excuse me to say, such a silly thing and kill the person? How? It just doesn't add up.
Right, Doc, but given this context, how do passengers of ride-hailing apps then ensure their own safety?
Well, you've got to be sure who you are using. I think that it's difficult, but there are a lot of them. I have had reports of this ride-hailing, guys sometimes entering into a banter with people and sometimes becoming even physical. For some reason, becoming very physical with their passengers. I don't use it, but, I've had reports I've read about reports of they becoming confrontational and sometimes dropping their passengers in the middle of nowhere and just driving off. And so I think that the Ministry of Transport and the powers that be would have to get involved to regulate them and regulate them well. Because then, if I see, apart from the phones they put in front of the vehicle, when you drive past them, sometimes you cannot tell because then we have different types of vehicles they are using. You can't tell if it's a ride-hailing or you won't know. And so there should be a way to identify and regulate them and even train them. Today, if a 20-year-old boy, the dad or someone bought him a vehicle, the next morning, I think he can begin this service. What training has he been put through? I mean, what training has he supposed to be picking people from one end of town to the other? The Ministry of Tourism, are they getting involved? Because these things don't augur well for all of us. But I think the Ministry of Transport, most especially, and maybe even the police, should begin to look at the DVLA itself. Can we begin to have some form of specialized licenses for these people so that once it is done, if I'm going to sit in one of these vehicles, maybe they have a specialized license that indicates that apart from the general license we all are given, you are, ride-hailing, you are in Uber or one of these, vehicles. I want to see whether, in fact, you've gone through that training to be issued a certain, specialized card that indicates that I am safe in your hands. And when that card is withdrawn, you lose the ability to drive because then you can drive other cars, but you cannot do commercial with that car. I mean, that would be another way of trying to weed these people out. And I think if we put in some of these measures, it's going to help us in the long run.
Right, Doc, thank you very much for your time this evening. We do appreciate it. Dr. Adam Buna is a security analyst, giving us his 2 cents on how we can be safe in public places.
Starr Today. First, fast, and credible.
You're still listening to Starr Today here on Starr FM. I am Tutuwaa Danso. From security, let's take you to the Public Accounts Committee, where the Ghana Cocoa Board has justified its 70% increment in administrative costs between 2022 and 2023. Now, this comes despite a decline in cocoa production, which saw the country producing only 683,000 metric tons of cocoa beans in the 2022-2023 season. While appearing before the Public Accounts Committee, Chief Executive Officer of Cocoa Board, Joseph Boahen Edu, attributed the decline in production to the rehabilitation program undertaken by the board. Here are excerpts of the proceedings.
Your cocoa purchases, the tonnage is going down. Your expenses is going up, and I hope you can justify that, because I expect that if the tonnage of cocoa is going down, the necessary expenses should be going down. But it is the opposite, about 70% increase also between 2022 and 2023. Can you talk to that?
Honorable Chair, the increase in administrative expenditure is largely as a result of the rehabilitation program that Cocoa Board is undertaking. The rehabilitation is rehabilitating cocoa stolen shoot viral diseased farms, CSSVD farms. We've come here and explained this issue before, that there's no known chemical remedy, and the only solution is to cut the trees and replant, which the farmers cannot do. So we went to AFDB and secured funding. And if you look at the amount there, almost a greater portion of that is going or had gone into the rehabilitation program. And rehabilitation started on a very large note in 2019 by Cocoa Board as a funding. But the AFDB money came in 2020. So 2020, 2021, that was when there was, significant injection or investment into the rehabilitation program. Yes, we've expended a lot, but production is not, reflecting, because all these farms are young farms. At the time the audit was done, these farms, some of them were 1 year old, 2 years, and then 3-year-old farms. And at that stage, the production of these farms cannot, correspond to investment.
Let's do education now. And here in the studios, we are asking, will you go ahead to pursue your master's program following recent concerns that some public universities are offering half-baked master's program? Well, the chairman for the Public Administration and State Interest Committee, Dr. Kwabena Donko, has slammed the management of the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission over what he terms the rollout of poor master's programs by some universities in the country. Many universities in Ghana offer such programs for workers on weekends and evenings for the same duration as regular students. But the Pro East MP believes the producers of the half-baked master's holders, given them limited time for such studies. He spoke to the media.
I am extremely uncomfortable about the quality of our scholarship as people. Particularly, the increasing number of substandard master's programs being run by our universities. Best practice elsewhere is that if a full-time program has a duration of 1 year, a part-time program will be 2 years. Increasingly, we're seeing the growth of weekend courses, the growth of evening courses with the same duration as full-time courses. There is no way a weekend program will have the same consistency and quality as a full-time program if you compress that into the same time frame. At 1023, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission has responsibility to accredit universities, to accredit programs, and also to ensure the quality of programs. Their responsibilities include liaising with industry to develop curricula that meets the need of industry. Unfortunately, the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission has gone to sleep on the job. We have all our public universities. I am worried because Ghana is uniquely positioned in the West African sub-region to be the educational hub, to attract students from across the sub-region and also contribute to national revenue and the growth of our GDP. But if we bastardize the quality, we will lose that unique position.
That was Dr. Kwabena Donko, the Member of Parliament for Pro East. Well, Star News has been speaking to some students, and this is what they've had to say. Take a listen.
Of years that GTEC came up with, which is the 2 years, is the best option because most of the people that offer masters are usually working, so the time frame for them is quite limited. So they having 2 years they'll actually get to meander their way throughout the days. And yes, I think 2 years is the best option to acquire your masters.
So I think the 2 years duration for masters is not enough. I'm saying this because I feel like if you are doing your masters, you need to, have time to, study the course that you are reading very well. And then what we see at our universities, sometimes the lecturers don't even come to class. They don't even, take us through the course very well. And then doing your masters for 2 years, I feel you come out with nothing in your head if you're not a serious student.
I think 2 years is not enough. They need more time to study, and it's just not enough. So.
Those were some students expressing their opinion about the half-baked master's program being rolled out in the country, universities in the country. Hello there, good evening once again. You are still listening to Starr today, and EIB remains your election hub. This is your 2024 election hub. It is certainly time now to take you on the campaign trail. If you are listening to us in Accra, you are doing so on Starr 103.5 FM. In Kumasi, it is always Ultimate FM 106.9. And in Takrade, Empire 102.7 FM. We also have audiences in Zebila, live on Zeb's FM 92.9. And on Facebook, we are streaming on our social media platform, that is at Starr FM. Around the world, it is starfm.com.gh. Welcome once again to the campaign trail. Now, as the 2024 elections draw near, politicians are making bold promises to win over voters. The flag bearers of the two major political parties, that is the NDC and the NPP, have vowed to abolish certain taxes if elected into office. What impact will the removal of these taxes have on Ghana's fragile economy? Lantan Papanko has filed this report.
The NDC flag bearer, John Dramani Mahama, has promised to scrap the 10% betting tax, the COVID-19 levy, and the e-levy.
Say where we come, the betting tax will go remove them.
A new National Democratic Congress government, God willing, and with the votes of the sovereign people of Ghana in 2025, will repeal the e-levy act.
Similarly, Vice President and NPP flag bearer Dr. Mahmoud Baumia has committed to scrapping the e-levy and the emissions tax and the tax on betting, as well as the proposed 15% VAT on electricity tariffs if it comes into effect by January 2025.
Under my administration, there will be no taxes on digital payments. The e-levy will therefore be abolished. The next MPP government will introduce a very simple, citizen-friendly and business-friendly flat tax system.
However, the question remains, what impact will the removal of these taxes have on Ghana's fragile economy? The government faces significant challenges in revenue generation, with a projected total revenue of 176.4 billion cedis for 2024. Tax revenue accounts for approximately 81% of total revenue. The COVID-19 levy, for example, has a full-year projection of 3.1 billion cedis, with 1.9 billion cedis already generated, which is 77.36% of the projected inflow. The e-levy, on the other hand, contributed only 1.63% of tax revenue from January to June, with a 10.85% shortfall in projected funds. With these figures in mind, can the government afford to lose these revenue streams? How will the shortfall be addressed if these taxes are removed as promised? Economist Professor Patrick Asumin argues that politicians must explain how they intend to offset the revenue loss if these taxes are eliminated.
When someone says, I'm going to remove a tax, we have to demand that they explain, based on our projections, when you remove any tax, it's going to create some hole, some deficit, some reduction in revenue. We have to have a clear plan. Anybody proposing such tax removal should give us a clear alternative plan that will fetch us at least as much as that.
A tax analyst, Eric Odro, believes that if the taxes under consideration make up more than 5% of tax revenue, they should be maintained.
If it is 5%, then per statistical inclination, it is negligible.
And if someone wants to scrap it, then it makes sense. But if that tax being collected, we find a percentage of the betting tax against the total tax revenue of Ghana, or let's say total tax revenue for direct tax, because the betting tax is a direct tax, it's tax on income, and it traverses beyond 5%, then I can tell you that it's a good tax to maintain.
Professor Patrick Asumin also suggests that reducing public spending could compensate for the loss in revenue, but he remains skeptical about the feasibility of such measures.
There's a strong argument that we should remove these taxes, some of these taxes that we are discussing. Whether that will happen, I'm doubtful. I think even those who are promising, don't forget that we've, at least from the ruling government side, the ruling party side, we've heard those kind of promises before to remove nuisance taxes. And to be fair, in the first few years, some taxes were removed, but new taxes quickly came back.
Governance expert Professor Bafo Ajimendria believes that even if these taxes are abolished, the government will find alternative ways to compensate for the shortfall through other forms of taxation.
This is not the first time they are promising this. I remember when the NPP was in opposition, Mahama was in power. They were referring to certain taxes as nuisance taxes. You remember?
Yes.
And promised to remove them when they came to power.
Yes.
Of course, they did remove some of them, if not all. But in the end, what did they do? They realized that they had shortchanged themselves in terms of revenue mobilization.
So some other taxes had to come.
So
and
they had
replace
to.
those ones.
Exactly. So if somebody promises, I will take up the e-levy, mind you, that in power, they will be hit with the reality. Even if they took the e-levy away, something else will come in to replace it.
Because ultimately, it remains to be seen whether these taxes will be abolished, and if so, how will the government address the resulting revenue gap, depending on the outcome of the 2024 elections. Lantam Papanko for Starr News.
That is my colleague Lantam Papanko there. Now, tonight on the campaign trail, we bring you a playback of a conversation my colleague Sewa Mihe had with the communications director of the 2024 NPP's campaign team lead, Dennis Miracle Labwaji.
Okay. Let's talk about the tax cuts also that the Vice President has proposed. I'm sure that you have heard this question many times about, if the Vice President says if he becomes president, betting tax will be abolished, e-levy will be abolished, and the question on the minds of many Ghanaians is, why can't he propose it to the President to abolish them now?
Okay, so first of all, he has proposed it to Cabinet. Cabinet disagreed with him. He's not the only person in government. He has? Yes. He is not the President. He doesn't take ultimate decision.
When was this proposal made?
Why? He's made his point about betting tax and e-levy several months ago, almost running into a year. But he's not president. We run an executive presidency. You see, you can do politics and be sentimental, but the facts are the facts. You are vice president, you are a minister, a cabinet minister. When you go to cabinet, there's something called collective responsibility. But the ultimate responsibility is with the president. So ultimately, when cabinet takes a decision, we are all collectively part of it. But why? You think there's everything in this government that I agree with, even though I speak for government a lot of times. I disagree with a lot. With a lot. But I take collective responsibility of decisions of government. That is how sane societies operate. That is the essence of democracy. Otherwise, there will be chaos. GH1, Sewa, over here, are you telling me that it is every decision that is taken by Nanaba and Bola that you agree with? But you go for management meetings, right? You go for staff meetings. You make proposals. Bola will agree with some. They will disagree with some. It will be implemented. You come and sit here. You will interview me. Even though you may not want to interview me, it is a production decision for you to interview me. It doesn't mean that you necessarily agree. If you had the chance to be the head of production, maybe you will not interview Miracles. So it is okay for you to go and tell your team that, you know what, I want to be head of production. When I become head of production, I would not interview Miracles. Then your staff will say, then stop interviewing Miracles now. You are not the one that takes the decision when it comes to who you interview on your show. It is your production team. That is how sane societies operate. When he becomes president, he believes that some enabling environment has been created in the past 1 or 2 years that does not require for e-levy to still be in existence. I'll give you a quick example. He's proposing that he cut 3% of GDP, which is about 30 billion, to private sector. So that is money that government will not need immediately, for which reason government has no reason to go and look for. So are you following? What it means is that he can easily cut out a levy and still be able to mobilize what government requires to be able to run government business within the fiscal year. But that is a decision that he would make when he's president. He is not president at the moment. And he doesn't take the decisions that government has to take. Cabinet decisions are decisions that he will follow through and implement. But he doesn't take decision as the president of the Republic of Ghana. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has taken a budget to create a fiscal framework in Parliament in 2023 November. In that budget, he said that we are going to mobilize revenues through a levy. That fiscal framework is what we are working with right now, Sewa. It is not up to the vice president to get up one day and call it, wish it away, and say that I'm vice president. I don't think we need a levy, so get out. He doesn't have that power. He doesn't take that decision. You may skew it. You may do politics with it. That is your business.
Have you heard members of the NDC say that if the president is unwilling to abolish these taxes, even when the vice president is against them, it means he himself does not even believe in the vice president?
This morning, I just shared a video of John Jinapo, Honorable, on my Facebook wall. He was asked a specific question. What is the role of the vice president? This was when he was spokesperson to the vice president, Mahama. He asked, what is the role of the vice president? I'll try to paraphrase him. He said the president has asked him to take care of social events, our day, Thanksgiving programs, speech and prize giving days. He attends, he does the media relations. And this is John Jinapo. And that the president has said that he will concentrate on the core government business, the economy, and the serious government business. These are his words. There is law. There is regulation. There are rules. You can't wash them away. You are a host. You are not in charge of production. The fact that your production team says today interview miracles and you disagree doesn't mean that they don't believe in you. It is not your decision. It is not your choice. You don't have the responsibility. We did not vote for you as president. We voted for Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as president. Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has his own vision, has his plan, and has a trajectory on which he wants to take the government. All of us, including the vice president, we work towards him and work for him. Otherwise, why don't you turn the same question to John Mahama, His Excellency, the former president? Why does he want to be president again? All the things he say he will come and do. Didn't we give him an opportunity in 2012? At the 2012 IEA debate, he looked us in the eyes and told us, and I quote him, I am only a spare driver. Make me the main driver and let me continue to do the good work that we've started as a government. When I come, I'm going to create jobs. I'm going to help businesses to expand. I'm going to stabilize our power situation. For 8 years, he created 600,000 jobs. He moved our inflation from 8% to 15% as president. Today, he is back, promising us all the things he promised us again in 2012 before we gave him power. Why are we not saying that all the things you said you would do today, you should have done them as president, so get out? In fact, if there is anybody we are going to hold accountable to this scenario, it is a former president, because he has been president before. He has been given that responsibility to fix all the things he's saying he will fix today, which he failed to do. Why would you let the former president, the man that has been president before, go scot-free on things that he's saying he will do today? Why are you not asking him all these things you are saying? Why didn't you do them when you were president? And you're asking the vice president. What kind of unfairness is that?
Okay. I'm wondering, and I'm sure that many people have been wondering, how the NPP intends to fund this manifesto if you're elected into power.
It's easy. True that, you see, the nicest thing about manifesto is that we didn't only look at the expenditure and the implementation, what we will do. We looked at how we are going to raise it as well. And Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has been clear. In fact, this is the first time you are seeing a manifesto that is so heavy on tax reforms. He believes that this country has the capability to raise so much without burdening the citizens. But we have lacked certain fundamentals in the past, for which reason we are unable to do that. Let me give you a quick scenario.
Okay.
Sawa, we are barely 20 to 25% of the entire population contributing to feed us. The entire population. The plenty people, barely 20 to 25%. You and I, who are in the formal sector, we are deducted through our payee. The businesses are paying their VAT and their corporate taxes. Then you have all these other duties and taxes that you have in the formal sector. Now the question is this: why do we have so many people who could also contribute that are not contributing? It's because we've never been able to put in place the needed infrastructure and systems to bring in a lot more people so that we reduce the burden. So because we need 30 billion to be able to run the country in a year. I'm giving you an example, just an example. Because you need 30 billion to be able to run the country in a year, and you have only few people who are going to pay. What you do is that you have to spread that 30 billion for all of them. So if you did 5,000 cedis and you have 5 people you need to raise the 5,000 cedis from, what would you do? Everybody will pay 1,000 cedis. Is that the case? Then you get 5,000. But if you manage to increase the number of people from 5 to 10, you can still raise the same 5,000 by reducing the 1,000 burden and getting everybody to pay 500 Ghana cedis. That's what Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is proposing. He's saying that let's review our assessment, collection of taxes, and also review the payment of taxes and make it a bit more convenient. So he traveled to Estonia with the GRA. Estonia has one of the best tax regimes in Ghana. In fact, they all have almost 99% compliance in Estonia. Why? Because of the digital and convenient way with which they collect and pay taxes. If you want to import these flowers from Turkey today, you have no idea how much you pay, Sawa. It has to get to the port. When it gets to the port, it's at the discretion of a GRA officer. Depends on how he likes you or otherwise. Sometimes you clear your car, you are exiting the port, they will call you to come back and say, we need to reassess it. Go to Abosio Kai. We met them. Go to Edum. We met them. Go to Tudu. We met them. They tell you, you clear your goods, you bring it to your shop. Then a week later, you have a GRA officer walk to your shop and say, I am seated by you. I want to check again. Why? You stifle businesses when you do that. And it is simply because we need to raise the money from these same people. And so the GRA has no choice than to continuously find ways to be able to collect these monies. What Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia is saying, let's review it. Let's reform it. Let's introduce better ways of doing this. First of all, he's introducing a flat rate tax regime for everybody, individuals and corporate institutions. So if Sewa and I are the same complexion, the same height, whatever, and we are supposed to pay taxes based on those things, we pay the same taxes. If you import a 20-footer container of tiles, porcelain tiles, and I also import a 20-footer container of porcelain tiles, Sewa, you won't pay 5,000 for me to pay 10,000. If it is 5,000, we are all going to pay 5,000. It enables businesses to plan. It enables them to strategize so that before your goods even sails on the sea, you know how much you're supposed to mobilize to be able to pay your taxes without having to wait for the discretion of somebody. He's also made a very important point that we need to re-look at our duties and their port charges because we have competition in the sub-region. Today, Togo has a lower top port charges than us. What it means is that businesses that should have come to our port, you know, a lot of our landlocked neighbors import through our port. But because our port charges are higher, they now would prefer to go through Togo. And even our own businessmen would now prefer to go through Togo to be able to bring their goods into the country. And then what happens is that our traffic at the port will go down. And even the revenue that you're expecting for which reason you increase your taxes, you won't get it. Okay. So he's saying, let's bring our port duties and charges to the level of Togo if we cannot go lower, so that our port will become a bit more attractive. What it means is that if you have 10 people who have moved from your port to Togo, because you've brought your charges down, and he knows that it is almost the same as Togo, he is now encouraged to bring it to your port and to be able to clear their goods. This is going to free businesses. It's going to reduce the fiscal burden on their necks because they are going to pay lesser charges and taxes that they are paying now, and it ultimately will pass on to consumers. And then he said that because he's bringing all these reforms, he believes that it's going to encourage a lot of individuals and businesses to be part of these reforms. But you owe a lot of taxes from the past. 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, you haven't paid. So even though you like this new regime and you want to be compliant so that your books will look good as a businessman, you are afraid that when you show up at GRA, they will slap you with the arrears.
Okay.
And so,
I want you to complete that quickly because
what he wants you to do now is that let's forgive them their taxes from the previous years.
The tax amnesty.
Yes.
Well, how will it work like? What is it going to be? Because we've tried it before. In 2013, 2017, it didn't get people to be compliant. How different will this be?
You know, in 2013, 2014, you know, tax amnesties come in different forms. For some, and if you look at 2014, they'll tell you that, you know, we are forgiving your penalties and your interest. In some amnesties, they will tell you that we are forgiving your principal, that you pay the penalties and interest. The unique one around this is that, one, The person is coming on board not just because he wants to pay his arrears. He's coming on board because now he finds the tax environment very convenient. He wants to attract investors. Investors are asking him to show them his tax compliance level. He doesn't have it. So now he wants to come. He's coming specifically for that. So that moving forward, he will now be able to pay his tax on time because it is convenient, it is lesser, it's giving him fiscal space. That is the first motivation, and that's what will be a difference between what happened in the past. And secondly, this is a complete tax amnesty. Principal, interest, penalties, all forgiven. Clean slate. Big difference.
I see. Now, this flat rate that you talk about, we had it in 2015. You came in and you moved it in 2017.
Which flat rate?
And now you want to bring it back.
Which flat rate
in
do we have in
2025. If Dr. Baumia becomes president,
which flat rate?
Should you not be? Let me land on my question. Should you not be apologizing first of all for saying that something was not as good enough when you removed it, and then you're bringing it back?
Tell me which flat rate.
The VAT flat rate, of course.
We're not talking about. We are talking about all the taxes. So which flat rate are you talking about?
I just mentioned VAT.
Which flat rate? But which flat rate? Which flat rate are you saying that we removed and we should apologize for? And we should apologize for what?
You're not bringing back the VAT flat rate.
We are consolidating the taxes. What's the flat rate about it? We are only putting them together. They are in different bits, and we are putting it together. That's why we are putting it together. So that's what we are saying. So we are consolidating them so that they are not fragmented like we have at the moment. So what are we apologizing for? So let's talk about the substance. What are we apologizing for? What do you want us to apologize for? Whatever it is that you said was there in 2016, how was it impacting the lives of the people? Okay. Businesses were lost in 2016. Companies shut down. Jobs were lost. A lot of the unemployed that you are talking about, they lost their jobs during the NDC era. That is what we should be talking about. They collapsed 300 of state-owned factories. They went to parliament to pass a law. Maybe the Gen Zs don't know. Let me remind them. The NDC government went to parliament, asked parliament to pass a law called the Divestiture Implementation Act. And then that Divestiture Implementation Act enabled the NDC government to set up a committee called the Divestiture Implementation Committee. Now that's what they did. They sold 300 state-owned factories. Factories that were assembling cars, factories that were producing glass, factories that were producing matches, factories that were producing car tires. Think of all the things you can imagine were being produced in this country. 300 of them. They sold them like chupa chops. They sold them like tomatoes. They sold them like the way you buy onions in the market to themselves. A lot of them have been converted into churches around Jolu, given to their cronies to set up churches. That is how bad it was under their era. So what are we apologizing for? If anybody should apologize, it should be that government that destroyed our industrial base. If that industrial base was there, we would not be struggling with 21 factories that the MPP government has done. If the MPP government was in office in 1988, all the way to 2000 when the NDC left office, we would not have sold those factories. What we would have done is to do what we are doing today, form partnership with private sector to revive these factories and make sure that we build our industrial base. Now today, they've dug the big hole for us. We come to start filling in the hole, and they're asking us for apologies.
Dennis, I'm sure that, on your agenda for women, yesterday I had a conversation with a gender activist, and I asked her if she had seen the proposal for the setup of the Women's Empowerment Fund, which...
Well, you have just been listening to Dennis Miracola Boaji in a conversation with my colleague, Sewa Amihi, about the NPP's manifesto, the relevant issues in there. Let's now take some updates from the foreign fronts now. And 22 persons have died and 354 new cases have been confirmed in Sudan following widespread outbreak of cholera in the country. The development has prompted a press release by health authorities alerting Sudanese to take precautionary measures in that regard. The outbreak has caught the attention of the World Health Organization, who have assured that they are working closely with health officials in Sudan to initiate a vaccination campaign. Now, the outbreak, which began in the eastern province of Kassala, has unfortunately spread to 9 localities in the 5 provinces of Sudan after the country experienced 16 months of devastating rainfall. Also to the USA, US President Joe Biden bows out in an emotional speech as he claims he has done his best for the country. Speaking at the National Convention in Chicago, President Biden said selecting Kamala was the best decision he ever made, and he urged Americans to vote for her.
America, I love you and the honor of my lifetime to serve as your president. I love the job, but I love my country more. I made a lot of mistakes in my career, but I gave my best to you. For 50 years, like many of you, I've given my heart and soul to our nation. And I've been blessed a million times in return for the support of the American people. I've either been too young to be in the Senate because I wasn't 30 yet, and too old to stay as president. But I hope you know how grateful I am to all of you. Selecting Kamala was the very first decision I made when I became our nominee. And it was the best decision I made my whole career. She's tough, she's experienced, and she has enormous integrity. Enormous integrity. And like many of our best presidents, she was also vice president. Are you ready to vote for freedom? Are you ready to vote for democracy and for America?
That was the President of the United States of America, Joe Biden. And that wraps up today's edition of Starr Today here on Starr FM. Thank you very much for your company. For more news updates, do log on to starfm.com.gh. I am Tutuwaa Danso. And of course, this production was led by Prince Essien and Edem Kujo. We'll see you again tomorrow. But the next news broadcast is at 6 a.m. And a special thank you to Emmanuel for making this stream possible. Have a good evening.